When a lawman's quest for vengeance collides with a drifter's code of honor, two men must decide whether justice comes from a courtroom or a gun barrel.
Hello everyone! Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, like the video and share with loved ones, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin.
The sun broke over White Hollow like a wound opening, all red and raw against the desert sky. Skye Williams stood at the edge of the cemetery, hat in hand, staring at a grave too small to be anything but heartbreak. A child's ribbon, faded pink, torn at the edges, fluttered against the wooden cross marking the spot. He wasn't alone. Marshal Garette Trent sat slumped on a stone nearby, flask dangling from fingers that hadn't stopped shaking in weeks. His badge caught the early light, but there was nothing lawful left in those hollow eyes. The whole town whispered about what happened to his daughter. Bandits, they said. Monsters who rode in under cover of night. I'll find every last one of them. Trent muttered, more to the grave than to Skye. Burn this whole godforsaken territory down if I have to. Skye said nothing. He'd come to White Hollow to pass through, not to get tangled in another man's war. He'd fought enough wars, buried enough ghosts. He turned to leave, boots crunching against the dry earth, then stopped. There, half buried in the dirt near the grave's edge, was a child's toy. A wooden horse, hand-carved, one leg snapped clean off. Blood had dried black along its mane. Something twisted in Skye's chest. Something he'd thought he'd killed years ago. Trent looked up, saw him staring. You got children, stranger? Skye's jaw tightened. He picked up the toy, turned it over in his weathered hands. Once, he said quietly. The marshal rose unsteadily, flask forgotten. Then you understand. You understand what needs doing. Skye met those desperate, dangerous eyes and knew he should ride out now. Knew that staying meant blood and fire and becoming something he'd sworn he'd never be again. He pocketed the broken horse. Maybe I do. White Hollow didn't just look dead, it felt infected. Skye rode down the main street at noon, and the silence pressed against him like a held breath. Half the storefronts were boarded up, their windows smashed or painted over. The few townspeople who walked the streets moved quickly, heads down, avoiding eye contact. The saloon was the only place with signs of life, though life was generous. Skye pushed through the doors to find a dozen men nursing drinks in the dimness, their conversations dying the moment he entered. Talk of Trent's justice hung in the air like gun smoke. 3 men hanged last week, 2 more missing, questions nobody dared ask out loud. He ordered whiskey and took a corner table. That's when he noticed her. A woman sat at the far end of the bar, red hair catching what little light filtered through the grimy windows. She wore ranch clothes, dusty leather, worn denim, but carried herself like she owned the room. Her eyes found his, held them longer than courtesy allowed. She stood, walked over, and pulled out a chair without asking. You're either very brave or very stupid, stranger, she said, her voice low and sharp as a blade. Riding into White Hollow like you've got nothing to lose. Clara Boone, she added, extending her hand. I owned, the Double B Ranch north of here. Skye took her hand. Her grip was strong, calloused. Skye Williams. And maybe I don't have anything to lose. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition of a kindred spirit, perhaps. Then you'll fit right in. This town's full of people with nothing left. She leaned back, studying him. Question is, are you here to help Trent destroy what's left, or are you here to stop him? The question hung between them like a challenge. The hanging happened at dawn. Skye was halfway across the square when he saw the noose. The accused man's feet kicking air, Trent's deputies holding back the small crowd. He reached for his gun. Too late. The body went still, swaying in the morning breeze like a grim pendulum. Justice, Trent announced from the scaffold, voice cracking. Swift and sure. Skye turned away, while rising in his throat. His hand found the wooden horse in his pocket, and he squeezed until the splinters bit into his palm. Clara found him an hour later, sitting behind the stable, blood dripping from his clenched fist. She knelt without a word, pried his fingers open, and began pulling out the splinters with steady hands. You can't save them all, she said quietly. Doesn't mean I stopped trying. She looked up, and he saw something shift in those green eyes. Curiosity mixing with something deeper, something dangerous. The space between them felt charged, electric. Her fingers lingered on his wrist, feeling his pulse jump beneath her touch. "You're not like them," she whispered, close enough that he could smell whiskey and sage on her breath. "Don't be sure," he answered, but he didn't pull away. She wrapped his hand with a strip torn from her bandana, movement slow, deliberate. "Trent's not hunting bandits. He's stealing land, using his daughter's death as cover. I can prove it, but I need someone who isn't afraid to look evil in the eye." Their gazes locked. Her breathing had quickened. "Help me," Clara said, "before he burns everything down." Skye knew agreeing meant descending back into hell. Knew it meant blood and bullets, and becoming the man he'd buried years ago. He nodded. "What would you risk to expose the truth? Subscribe if you'd ride with Skye and Clara, or if you think they're already too late." They rode hard to Clara's ranch at sunset, the sky bleeding orange and purple across the horizon. She needed the ledgers hidden in her father's old safe, proof of forged deeds, falsified claims, Trent's signature on documents that transferred land from the dead to his associates. They smelled the smoke before they saw it. "No," Clara breathed, spurring her horse faster. The Double B was already burning. Trent's men moved like shadows through the flames, torching what remained. Skye counted 5, no, 6, armed and efficient. The marshal himself stood in the center of it all, his star glinting in the firelight like a promise of damnation. "Go around," Skye told Clara. "Get to the safe." He rode straight in, gun drawn. The first shot went wide, intentional. He aimed to wound, not kill, but Trent's men weren't so discriminating. Bullets whined past his head as he dove from his horse, using a water trough for cover. "Return fire." A deputy screamed, clutching his leg. Another ran. Through the smoke and chaos, Skye saw Trent watching him, expression unreadable behind the orange haze. Then Clara was there, ledgers clutched to her chest, soot streaking her face. They ran for the horses as the main house collapsed inward, sending sparks spiraling into the darkening sky. They didn't stop until they reached the canyon ridge. Clara stood at the edge, trembling, not with fear, but pure rage. Skye moved behind her, steadying her shaking hands as she raised them toward the distant flames, as if she could will them back, reclaim what was stolen. The gesture turned into something else. She turned in his arms, eyes wild, and kissed him, hard, desperate, tasting of ash and fury. The firelight played across their faces, turning the moment savage and holy. She pulled back, breathing ragged. "Not like this." "No," he agreed, though neither moved. "Not like this." They found the wounded ranch hand 2 miles east, crawling through the scrub brush, leaving a dark trail behind him. Clara recognized him. Tommy Reeves, barely 19, worked her father's land since he was a boy. "Miss Clara," he gasped as they lifted him. "I tried to stop them." They made camp in an abandoned stage stop, stone walls offering shelter from the wind. Skye worked to stop the bleeding while Clara held the boy's hand, whispering reassurances neither of them believed. "It wasn't bandits," Tommy choked out, eyes fever bright. "Trent's daughter, it was his own deputy. Rollins. I heard them talking, forged land deeds. Needed her gone because she'd seen the papers." The words hit like physical blows. "Trent doesn't know," the boy continued, voice fading. "He thinks he's hunting justice, but they're using him, using his grief." Tommy died just after midnight. Clara sat frozen, staring at nothing. Skye built up the fire, then settled beside her with the medical kit. A bullet had grazed his shoulder during the ranch fight. He'd ignored it until now. "Let me," she said quietly, reaching for the bandages. Her hands moved over his skin with careful precision, cleaning the wound, wrapping it tight. But her touch lingered, fingertips tracing the old scars on his back, the stories written in his flesh. "How many times have you almost died?" she asked. Stopped counting. She leaned her forehead against his shoulder. He felt her breath, warm and unsteady. His hand found hers. They lay down beside the dying fire, bodies barely touching, a shoulder, a hip, fingers intertwined. No words. Just two people who'd lost everything, finding temporary shelter in shared ruin. Outside, coyotes sang to the indifferent stars. Dawn broke cold and merciless. Skye rode into White Hollow alone, Clara trailing at a distance with a rifle across her saddle. The town square was already crowded. Trent had 3 men in chains, ropes waiting. "Marshal," Skye's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. Trent turned, eyes bloodshot and wild. Come to watch justice served, Williams? Come to stop a lie. Skye dismounted, hands visible but ready. Your daughter wasn't killed by bandits. It was your own deputy, Rollins, covering up land fraud you've been too blind to see. The crowd stirred. Trent's face went white, then red. You're lying, he snarled, but his voice cracked. Rollins has been with me. Where is he now? Skye pressed. Where's Rollins been while you've been hanging innocent men? The question hung like smoke. Trent's hand moved toward his gun. Clara's voice rang out from the jail steps. He's telling the truth, Marshal. I have the deeds. Your signature's on half of them, forged by men you trusted. No. Trent drew. The square exploded. Someone fired. A deputy, a townsman, impossible to tell. Skye dove for cover as bullets chewed through wooden posts. Glass shattered. A woman screamed. Clara appeared beside him, pulling him behind a water trough, her hands slick with his blood, or hers, he couldn't tell. Their faces were inches apart, fury and fear mixing in her eyes. We're not dying here, she hissed. No, he agreed, reloading. Not here. More gunfire. Smoke filled the air. Above it all, Trent's anguished roar as everything he believed turned to ash. The truth is out, but will anyone survive it? Subscribe to find out what happens when a broken lawman faces the real monsters. Hit that button if you're riding this trail to the end. They fled into the desert, riding until the horses couldn't go farther. A canyon offered shelter, red rock walls carved by centuries of wind, a thin creek bed with enough water to survive. Skye built a small fire while Clara tended their wounds. His ribs were bruised, her arm grazed by a bullet. They worked in silence, the weight of everything pressing down like the star-filled sky above. I had a daughter, Skye said finally, staring into the flames. Long time ago, during the war. She was 4 when the soldiers came through our town. Clara's hands stilled on the bandage she was wrapping. I was 3 days right away, fighting for a cause I can't even remember now. His voice was hollow. Came home to ashes. Found her yellow ribbon in the ruins. That's all that was left. Clara moved closer, took his scarred hand in both of hers. Their grief reflected in each other's eyes like mirrors facing mirrors, infinite and devastating. I'm tired of burying people, she whispered. So am I. The space between them dissolved. She kissed him, not desperate this time, but deliberate. Seeking. He responded in kind, fingers sliding through her hair, pulling her closer. They moved together slowly, tenderly, shedding grief like old skin. Hands traced scars with reverence. Lips tasted salt, sweat, tears, the essence of survival. Their bodies found rhythm in the firelight, breath mingling with the whisper of desert wind through mesquite. It wasn't passion born of lust. It was 2 souls clinging to proof they could still feel something beyond pain. Afterward, they lay tangled beneath his coat, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady into the night. Tomorrow we finish this, she murmured. Tomorrow, he agreed, holding her closer. But tonight, they were alive. Fort Ransom squatted on the territory's edge like a rotting tooth, an abandoned military outpost now converted into a trading fortress. Rollins had made it his headquarters, surrounded by hired guns and stolen wealth. Skye and Clara rode in at noon, the sun directly overhead, casting no shadows. They weren't alone. Marshal Trent emerged from the opposite ridge, 6 deputies behind him, eyes fixed on the fort with the single-minded intensity of a man who'd finally found his true enemy. Williams. Trent's voice carried across the distance. You were right. God help me, you were right. Before Skye could respond, the fort erupted. Rollins's men opened fire from the walls, bullets kicking up dust in lethal patterns. Clara dropped from her horse, rifle already singing. She took down a gunman on the eastern tower, clean shot through the shoulder. Skye moved like smoke, using the terrain, returning fire with precision. He wounded another, disabled a third. The art was in knowing where not to aim. Killing was easy, stopping someone was skill. Then Rollins appeared on the rampart, dragging a bound prisoner, Trent's own deputy, the one who'd actually murdered the marshal's daughter. She saw the deeds, the deputy screamed. She was going to tell? I had no choice. Trent's gun roared once. The deputy's body crumpled. The marshal stood frozen, smoking pistol in hand, watching the man who destroyed his life bleed out on the stones. The weight of it broke something fundamental inside him. Skye saw it happen, saw the moment Garette Trent ceased to exist. Rollins raised his own weapon, grinning. 3 guns fired simultaneously, Skye's, Clara's, Trent's. Rollins fell backward into the fort's courtyard. Silence descended like a shroud. Trent dropped to his knees, the gun falling from nerveless fingers. What have I become? Skye gathered the stolen deeds from Rollins's office, dozens of them, representing years of theft, families destroyed, lives ruined. Clara watched as he carried them outside and dropped them into a fire barrel. That's the proof, she said. That's how we clear the innocent. And condemn how many others? Skye struck a match. Half the territory's built on these lies now. You burn the lies, you burn the territory. The deeds caught fire, curling into ash and smoke. Inside, Trent lay dying from a wound he'd barely noticed taking. Skye knelt beside him, and the marshal's hand gripped his arm with surprising strength. Tell me, Trent rasped, blood on his lips. Was I the monster or the fool? Skye looked at the burning deeds, at Clara standing in the doorway silhouetted against the desert sun, at the bodies scattered across Fort Ransom. Out here, he said quietly, there's no difference. Trent's eyes closed. His breathing stopped. The marshal's star lay in the dust beside him, reflecting nothing. They buried him next to the fort. No marker, no words. Some men didn't deserve monuments, only silence. Skye and Clara rode out as flames consumed Fort Ransom behind them, smoke rising like prayers to an indifferent heaven. They didn't speak of what came next, where the trail would lead, whether redemption was even possible for people like them. Her hand found his as their horses walked side by side. You think we did the right thing? She asked. I think we did the only thing. The desert stretched before them, vast and unforgiving. 2 silhouettes against a merciless sun, carrying their scars into an uncertain future. Behind them, ash scattered on the wind, the remains of justice, vengeance, and truth, all burning the same. If justice took your blood, would you still call it justice? Subscribe to Ride with more stories where heroes and villains blur like desert mirages. Hit that button and subscribe now. The trail's just beginning.
If you enjoyed this story, we appreciate you a whole lot and look forward to connecting with you as we build a community on this channel. Every day, we will put out more stories, so we need your support. Help us by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. You won't miss any new exciting videos. Check out the next video. You'll love it.